Guys, we're back. So when it comes to your finances, there are a lot of bad decisions that you could potentially make. And trust me, I know, I've done a few of them myself in the past. But I think majority of the time, these discussions revolve around things that are not really that significant in the bigger picture, like not going to Costa and spending £5 on a latte, or thinking about getting that new black sweater. So in this video, we're going to talk about the major ones, 4 of the worst financial mistakes that you can make, but have the power to not only mess up your finances, but to actually screw up your whole life. So before we do get into that video, guys, I'm just giving you a heads up, bear with me, I've just literally overcome a flu. I've been, when I say wiped me out. So starting off with number 1, marrying the wrong person. Even if you're somebody who feels that they don't really care about money like that, money is undeniably very important in life. And when you're marrying someone, you're involving yourself in their life in every way. If the two of you aren't aligned on your financial goals and values, you're most definitely going to have relationship problems. You're going to have fighting, you're going to have resentment and imbalance and control issues, and ultimately probably even divorce. Fun fact, but over 30% of divorces are initiated over financial problems. Say if one person's a saver and the other's a spender, or one person's more career driven than the other, or maybe one's used to having certain financial safety nets in check and the other's used to living, say, paycheck to paycheck and living on credit cards, chances are likely the relationship isn't going to last. And if you think that living day to day with somebody that has a different outlook on money could be frustrating or costly, just imagine trying to get rid of them. More than likely it's going to end up in court. And just think about the divorce costs involving legal fees, court costs, and the division of assets. It can also result in long-term financial obligations such as alimony or child support. You could honestly lose everything for real. In my opinion, if you're dating someone, I believe by date 3, you should be talking about money with the person. And I'm not talking about asking to see their tax returns, because that's all mad. But to see what the general thoughts are about money, their spending habits, thoughts on debt, their financial goals, and their career plans. So for example, say like you might be someone that's very low maintenance when it comes to your social life. You might like to go to the odd concert a couple times a year, or going out for food now and then, or maybe even go to the cinema, or get a coffee and go for a hike while living below your means along the way, so you can save and invest for the future. And then all of a sudden you start dating somebody that's lifestyle is totally different to yours, and they might like to splurge out on expensive clothes or go on 5 holidays a year and wants to go out every single weekend, say to eat out, living paycheck to paycheck while racking up loads of credit card debt. Or worst case scenario, they don't bring in any income at all and they bring nothing else to the table but stress. This is set up for disaster. These are the conversations that you want to be having early on. I mean, ideally before you're emotionally invested, because honestly it amazes me for real that there's people that's been together years and they don't know how much each other makes, or doesn't know how much debt they're in collectively. There's even some people, honestly, that know exactly how that person is at the start of dating, and they'll still pursue things, and then you wonder why you're so stressed years down the line. Number 2, buying a house you can't afford. And even though banks do put a few things in place before buying a house you can't afford, on paper anyway, like credit checks, debt to income ratio, down payment requirements, and so on, but it's still so easy to buy a house you can't afford. A matter of fact, they even state what your mortgage payments would be if your rates were to change. But a lot of people don't even look into that. There's been times where you might seem like the mortgage payments are okay and you can afford it at that current moment in time. But a lot of people don't take into account the rising prices of interest rates, and that's dangerous. So for example, in the UK, it's known to have 2, 3, 5, and in some cases 10-year fixed terms. And I know in some places like America, you can lock in for 30 years fixed. But unfortunately, that's not how the UK mortgage market works. So anyway, in 2020, there are people in the UK, and I know some personally, that thought buying a 300 grand house was a good idea because the interest rates, if I remember, they dropped to as low as 0.1% due to COVID. For a lot of people that took out mortgages at that time, they were maxing out. They were borrowing as much as they could possibly afford. The mistake they made, they didn't take into account the rise in prices of interest rates that would come, like I say, that would come along in a few years' time. And now you have people struggling to maintain repayments, or they've had to sell. They've had to sell the house and downsize. And that's all due to interest rates going up from 0.1% in 2020 to now 5% in 2025. So let's say someone that locked in at 1% at a 5-year fixed term with a down payment of 10% over 30 years. They had mortgage repayments of roughly £950, but due to the spike in interest rates and their fixed term coming to an end, their monthly payments have now gone to roughly £1,060. Their mortgage payments have nearly doubled. And yes, I know we can't control how high the interest rates go, but this is why you need to bear in mind, you need to bear these things in mind when buying a house, and ask yourself, if interest rates are to change, would you be able to afford it? Because if not, this could be real costly. It doesn't help either when people buy a bigger house than they need in the first place. We have people buying a 5-bedroom house when all they probably need is a 3-bedroom. And don't get me wrong, it's okay to buy a big house, but only if you know that you can afford the monthly payments in the long term. Like I say, take into mind the interest rates. But majority of people are breaking their necks to maintain payments on a house they can't afford. And that's, like I say, that's before the interest rates started changing. Okay, so you also have to bear in mind the utilities and the council tax in the house that you're buying. Because of course, the more expensive and the bigger the house you get, the more the utilities and the council tax will be. So before buying a house, make sure you bear all these things in mind. So like I say, so you don't buy a house that you cannot afford. So the third one we're going to get into, guys, is credit cards. And credit cards aren't inherently a bad financial decision, but they can become problematic if mismanaged. And unfortunately, that's what over 70% of people do. Credit cards are so mismanaged because instead of people using them responsibly and paying back month to month on things they actually need, they'll use it to just buy things. They'll just buy whatever they like, not thinking about the consequences of when not paying them back in time. Credit cards make it so easy to spend money that you don't have. And it will, like I say, it will only lead to impulse purchases and financial strain. This just leads to accumulating so much debt that it's hard to pay off on time. It's so easy to scroll on the internet and see a holiday that you want to go to, or go on a shopping spree that you really can't afford, and you don't think about it. You don't think about the payments that are going to come with it. Credit cards often carry high annual percentage rates, sometimes exceeding 20%. If you carry a balance month to month and end up missing payments, the interest rates can add up quickly, leading to a significant increase in your debt. So if you cannot pay off your credit card in full by the end of the month, you do not need to be using a credit card. Honestly, just get rid of it. Get rid of it. So me personally, I believe if you don't have the money in the first place, don't use one. Unless, like I say, you can use it responsibly, then that's another thing. And yes, you might argue the case and say you want to build your credit, because yes, they do help you build credit whenever you want to go purchase a home and other things. But the idea that you can only build credit from purchasing one, it's a myth. You can also build it from other types of monthly payments, like paying your rent on time, paying utility bills, paying your phone bills, and avoiding overdrafts in your bank account. So overall, just paying your bills on time. This all adds to your credit report. So if you're a person that's forever paying credit card debt and it's causing financial strain on your finances, then it's best off you get all the credit card debt eliminated and stop using one altogether. So number 4 is financing a car, especially a new car. Financing a car is so common, but I think A lot of people think that's the normal way to buy a car, the same way it's normal to get a mortgage when you're buying a house. But it's not. Just because something is common, it doesn't mean it's normal, and it doesn't mean it's good. Here's why. Something that increases in value, like a house or a stock, is called an asset. But something that decreases in value, like a car, is called a liability. And yes, people argue in the case that it's a depreciating asset. And yeah, they're right, it is. But it loses value rapidly, with most cars depreciating by 20 to 30% in the first year and around 60% after 5 years. Financing means you're paying interest on a depreciating asset, which can leave you owing more than what the car is actually worth. And in some cases, well, eventually they become entirely worthless. And yes, that's right. No matter if you buy it outright or finance it, it will still lose its value. But the difference is, a lot of people financing a car, maybe majority of people that are financing a car, are financing it because they can't really afford it in the first place. And because they're financing it, they'll end up buying an even more expensive car that they definitely can't afford. And essentially locking themselves into years and years of high monthly payments, essentially robbing of £100 a month from the budget. And it's making their life more stressful than it needs to be. It doesn't make no sense whatsoever to be paying £400, £500, £600 a month on a car, and in return it's leaving you with nothing left every single month. But if you're in the position where you're absolutely stuck and you can buy a car with financing that you'll be able to afford to pay in, say, 2-3 years, then fine. I can see that with being the goal not to get tied into financing another one after you're done paying it, and instead invest your money into, say, an index fund. Or instead, if you don't like seeing your money grow, then you can save it. So in this video, it is a lot of common financial decisions people make. Marrying the wrong person, credit card debt, buying a house you can't afford, buying new cars. All that stuff honestly is pretty common, but those pretty common financial decisions can set you back many years. So what I like to say to motivate the people, especially you youngers out there who are just getting started in life, is if you can prevent yourself from making these types of decisions, that is going to put you leaps and bounds of not only your peers, but also people well above your age, if you set yourself up right on the right foot getting started in life. So with that being said, thank you for locking in, guys. If you found this useful, give it a like, share it with someone who might need it, and don't forget to subscribe for more tips. And I'll see you in the next video.